The Utah Jazz exceeded expectations last season. People thought they'd be at the bottom of the standings, but they finished 37-45 and were actually flirting with a play-in spot. This offseason, the Jazz have undoubtedly improved their roster. They drafted 3 rookies, with Summer League standout Keyonte George leading the way. Then the team made a big splash this offseason when they acquired John Collins in a trade, where the only asset they lost was Rudy Gay. The Jazz have quickly turned their fortunes around since trading Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, and all of a sudden have an intriguing roster that can make things interesting in a crowded Western Conference. What's going on, everyone? It's Lukey here, back with another video. In this one, I'm going to be talking about the Utah Jazz and how they're sneaky good. This is a team you shouldn't sleep on, and they proved to us last season that you just can't count them out. If you guys want to be saw a favorite, please hit a like on the video. It does help it a ton. And please subscribe to the channel for more Jazz and NBA content just like this. Without making any drastic trades or signings during this offseason, the Jazz have been busy finding ways to improve the team's roster for this season and beyond. A low-risk, high-reward deal to get John Collins, a successful draft consisting of 3 first-round picks, number 9, number 16, and number 28, and Taylor Hendricks, Keyonte George, and Bryce Sensabaugh, respectively, and a few other tweaks, has allowed this Jazz team to take some significant steps forward this summer. Fans should be excited, because the Jazz look to be a competitive product right now, and this is a team that can potentially try to obtain a playoff berth next spring. Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler, and Collin Sexton, who all came over in those big trades a summer ago, all made an instant impact on the Jazz this past season. The team would later make several other trades where the likes of Mike Conley and others were dealt away, all but ensuring the Jazz would miss the playoffs. Despite that, however, the Jazz still managed to find a way to compete. This was a team that was a tough out for anybody, especially towards the start of the season when they surprisingly jumped out of the gate and were a competitive team when many people thought they were just going to roll over for the entire season and tank for Victor Wembanyama. The Jazz, they nearly made the play-in tournament, and now things are looking good for the squad long term. So it's not surprising that ex-assistant coach for the Utah Jazz, Gordy Chiesa, predicted the squad to go to the playoffs. He spoke on the Bill Riley show on ESPN 700, and he said that the Jazz would win 44 games this year, and then further documented why he thinks that. And I quote, "They won 37 last year, and I think they're better with John Collins. I know people are going to say they had a great beginning last year, and then they struggled. Well, that's when they got injured, and that's when they sat guys out. I talked about it in late March, April. The last, let's just say 15 games, they sat out Lauri Markkanen and those guys," close quote. The Jazz should be better in 2023-2024, and Chiesa is right that the team had to deal with injuries, and they obviously sat out guys. When you look at the 2023-2024 season, the Jazz are looking like a very solid team. They have a lot of young talent on this roster. You got Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler, who look like stars on the rise, and then you have a potential budding rookie sensation in Keyonte George. I'm a big fan of George, and we saw what Keyonte George was able to do at Las Vegas Summer League. While he got injured in the third league game, George had put up some impressive stats. He shot 52.5% from the floor while hitting 44.4% from 3. He averaged 21.7 points, 6.3 assists, and 2 rebounds per game. He was awesome in his showing, and I'm a huge fan of Keyonte George. I think this is going to end up being another great pick for the Jazz that pans out well for them. The Jazz still have Agbaji, who showed tremendous shooting potential, and of course the Jazz, they traded for John Collins, who should be a good fit in Utah. Collins and Lauri Markkanen could end up being a dangerous duo that teams will have to combat, especially if Collins and Markkanen are able to hit their shots from 3. That is a duo to look out for. The Jazz playoff future, however, will rest in what happens at point guard, because there is a logjam there right now. You got Collin Sexton, Keyonte George, Chris Dunn, Talen Horton-Tucker, and Jordan Clarkson, who will all be competing for the team's new primary playmaking position. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because we know if a team is going to make the playoffs, they need to have tremendously consistent production at that point guard position. But when you look at the big picture for this Utah Jazz team, trumping last year's 37 wins should be in the cards for the Jazz and will be very attainable. head coach Will Hardy with a front office that won't be throwing up roadblocks every step of the way and will be ready to go for it. I think that's going to allow the Jazz to surpass 37 wins and definitely have a chance to win closer to 44 games this season. And another interesting thing to note here is don't be shocked if the Jazz make an in-season upgrade to the roster, especially if the Jazz are playing well. Jazz CEO Danny Ainge has enough assets stockpiled where an all-in move is in the cards if an opportunity presents itself. So the Utah Jazz should be a very fun team to watch, and I think they will be a much more improved team than a season ago. The West is very stacked, make no mistake about it. So it's going to be a very tough battle for the Jazz, especially if the Jazz want to crack a playoff spot. But they should be in the battle for at least a play-in spot, especially if guys like Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler continue to get better. So the Jazz could be that sneaky good team this year that turns heads. They're still going to be overlooked. They're still going to be considered the underdog. Now, a lot of people are going to take this team to do huge things this season. But we saw last season when their backs are up against the wall and nobody's really talking about the Jazz and nobody's really expecting the Jazz to do much of anything, they showcase their true talent and they turn a lot of heads. So we'll see if that similar narrative plays out this season and the Jazz go that extra mile. And like I said, could entertain the possibility of making the play-in tournament and be a team that disrupts things in a very loaded Western Conference. But I really like this roster. I really like the direction in which the Jazz are going in. This is a team that has a very solid product right now. This team can go out there and win 40-plus games. And at the same time, the Jazz's future remains super, super bright as they got picks. And like I said, they have the flexibility to make something big happen if they choose to later on this season or into next offseason. So we'll see what happens. But what are your expectations for the Jazz this season? How much better do you think they'll be than a season ago? Let me know your thoughts down below. The Utah Jazz, this team has been built back up properly, and it's been great to see, as that is a big basketball market that definitely wants to get back to playing in some meaningful playoff games. So in closing here, there's going to be a couple of things that I'm personally going to keep an eye out for when it comes to this Jazz team. Number one, I'm interested to see who's going to end up taking the reins and start for this team at point guard. The other thing I'm going to be looking out for is Walker Kessler's second season. He phenomenally burst onto the scene last season. He was a blocking machine, allowing fans to quickly forget about Rudy Gobert. I want to see how much better Kessler can get. And then the last thing is Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen won Most Improved Player of the Year award. And when you look at Lauri Markkanen, he is still about to enter the prime of his career. And I think Lauri Markkanen can be that consistent go-to guy that the Jazz can rely on. Let me know what you're going to look out for, guys. And that is it. This is Lucas signing off. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all again in the next video.